Tameeko.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. I'm so excited about today's
Me
topic.
too. So
I think this is
cool.
going to be super valuable for the listeners and, our watchers. And so you want to just get into it?
Yeah.
I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Jennifer Dunn, and I'm a health coach and a nutritionist, and I specialize in people with sugar addiction and diabetes and weight loss. And this is my friend Tameeko, and she is a health coach and nutritionist as well. And we actually went to through the same school to get our certification. So that's pretty cool. And we have the same birthday,
Yeah.
November 15th. So yeah, we have a lot in common, and I met her in one of our other groups we were in together, and I just think that she brings a lot of value. Like, she's very valuable in this coaching field. So anyway, and she always talks about how she was raised on junk food, and that was kind of what um, inspired you to become like a health coach, because you wanted to be healthier, you wanted to have healthier children and everything. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about you and how you came to health coaching?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you for the kind words. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I grew up on junk food. And so my mom was a single parent and she worked full time and she was raising two kids. And so she didn't really have a lot of time and she didn't have a lot of energy. And so we ate a lot of, which I now kind of jokingly say to her, a lot of semi homemade meals, because she would do like the freezer stuff and then she would kind of add her little touch to it just because it was something really quick. And for her, her priority was that we were happy and that we were well fed. And so it was less of a focus on like the nutritional quality. And so we ate at a lot of fast food restaurants. We ate a lot of packaged foods. We bonded over a lot of sweet treats, and we would drink 2 liters of Pepsi like constantly. And so we were exposed to, so we just, and that's really her foundation as well. And so we just, that's kind of what our family culture was. And and so it was pretty much all that I ever really knew. And then as I got a little bit older, that's when I started, and when I entered adulthood, that's when that diet kind of started to take a toll on my mental health and my physical health. And I didn't know why. I was just not feeling right, because I felt like I was too young to be feeling tired all the time and just inability to focus. And like my hair, skin, and nails were being impacted, and I just didn't feel right. And I actually went into a health and wellness clinic, and the nurse practitioner that I had met with, she was like, well, look at your lifestyle. Of course you're feeling crappy because you look at your lifestyle. And for me, that was kind of a whoa, like I had no idea that there was a correlation, because that's just not the way that I grew up. That's not a conversation that we had. And really, when it came to healthy eating, the culture within my family it was literally for the birds, and it wasn't something that we took seriously, eating healthy and those types of things. It was kind of, we treated it like a joke. And so for me as a child, I followed into that. So once I learned about that, I started kind of trying to figure it out on my own. And it took me years trying to figure it out on my own, because I had never seen it modeled. I didn't have anybody in my life like that could show me the way. And so I was just kind of stumbling along for years trying to figure it out. And then once I got pregnant with my son, that's when it really lit a fire under my pants, because I was like, I don't want him to have to struggle like this. And I want to make sure that I can model this for him. And so I just got really, really serious. And so I really wish that I had like some support so that I could have figured it out a lot sooner, but I didn't. And so I made the best of it. And I really made it my mission at that point to just get more educated. And so I ended up getting certified later on, and that's what sparked me wanting to be a health coach so that I could help other women that are in similar positions, or maybe it was just later on in life that they kind of fell into the junk food cycle and developed poor eating habits. And so I just want to be able to be a resource for other people to find a better way and not have them struggle for years like I did. So.
Right. And I mean, that's good that you had a doctor to point that out to you, you know. I think that's so awesome. So,
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
And it was just happenstance that my doctor was based out of a health and wellness clinic, because I wasn't really, I think it was just, that was like the closest place. So it just so happened that it was a health and wellness place. And because I don't know that I would have gotten that, or I hadn't gotten that same advice with previous doctors. So
It was meant to be.
it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of us health coaches come to health coaching because of something that happened to us, or how, you know, we had to heal something you know, in us, or you know, we're having some kind of health issue, or a family member or something like that. And so I think a lot of us come to it in that way. And then, you know, we see how powerful it can be to heal your body with lifestyle, and we get so excited about it that we want to help others with the same thing. So, you know, I mean, you know, it made me a believer. So,
Definitely, yeah. And it's just crazy, thinking back to just, how I felt when I was much younger, and now where, I wake up and of course, like, oh, like, do I want to get up? But once I'm up and I'm happy and I've got sustainable energy. And that's such an amazing feeling, to just,
yeah.
be able, not yawning all day, and just feel focused and clear and ready to go get them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's get into the questions, because I have several questions that I want to ask you. And our topic today, if everyone doesn't know, is how to raise healthy kids, and, you know, just how to, yeah, I know it can be such a struggle as parents to, you know, to get your kids to eat healthy foods, and to even just try them. You know, they don't even want to try them. And so, you know, I just know what the struggle is. So the first question is, like, as moms or parents, where do we start when it comes to raising healthy kids? Like, what would you start with, Tameeko?
Well, honestly, when it comes to where to start, starting now, because you cannot start earlier. There's just increasingly more and more evidence right now of how early this whole cycle of, our food preferences is formed. There's evidence that's showing how, even while they're in the womb, and, through the amniotic fluid. So what we're eating as, pregnant mothers to be, that is stimulating, or that's giving them exposure and starting the flavor stimulation and helping them start to, like, set those taste preferences. And if you end up breastfeeding during lactation, that's also setting the food preferences. So you cannot start early, like, it's not, there's never too early to start. And so, and then after breastfeeding and they start getting introduced to foods, that's when their actual, like, preferences are set. So they're getting that exposure in the womb and during breastfeeding, and then their food preferences and their attitude towards foods is getting set as soon as we start introducing them to food. And that is coming from the parent and our actions. And so they're learning from us about how we eat, what we eat, when we eat, how much we eat. So all of that is just starting out from the very, very beginning. So you can never start too early. But if you didn't start while the baby was forming in your tummy, not all hope is lost. Because even though primarily a large portion of our food preferences are set in early childhood. Food likes and dislikes are learned, and they can also be through repeated offerings. Those innate preferences can be changed. It's absolutely possible to change them. The earlier the better, because it's going to make it a lot easier, but you can still influence those preferences later on in childhood. It's just you have to be a little more clever, you have to be a little more creative, but you can do it. It can absolutely be done. The three things that I like to remember that are the same, because it really is going to vary through each of the different age groups, because as they enter through different developmental stages, what influences them is going to evolve and continue to evolve. But the three things that I like to start with are remembering to be intentional, be consistent, and be cool. And so with being intentional, just making sure that you remember you have set goals. What is it that you're trying to achieve? What does a healthy eater mean to you? Because it has to be something that makes sense to you, because a big part of their food behavior is driven by what they're seeing you model. And so if it's something that you can't even stick to, then it's probably not going to be a good place to start, because as they get older, and if you are able to be successful with them, like, oh, eat this, but then as they get older and they see you're not doing that, then all your work's going to be out the window because you're not modeling it. So just being very clear about what your goals are. And then also with being intentional, remembering why this is important. So remembering your goals is going to help you with making decisions as you're on the fly and living life. And if you remember why it's important, that's going to help you stick to your guns. And like just really sitting down and thinking about, why are you doing this? Why is this important? Is going to really just help you stay on the right path. And then with being consistent, this might be a little bit controversial, but I am a big proponent of drawing a line in the sand and just deciding, like, okay, these are the things that we don't eat. And I chose my words very carefully right there, and saying that these are things that we just don't eat, as opposed to we're not allowed to eat these things. These are things that are restricted, because you want to avoid being on both the extreme sides of the spectrum. You don't want to be overly lax where anything goes, because we need structure as humans. We need structure, and some level of it, and children especially need some kind of structure to hold on to, so they don't feel like they're free falling out of a plane. They need something to hold on to know that they're safe. But at the same time, you don't want to be overly restrictive, because then later on, once they are on their own, then they're gonna, throw it all out the window. So just making sure that you that happy medium, and finding that middle place. And so the conversation just has to be about, as a family, as a unit, this is what we do. This is how we live. This is what we care about. And because our taste preferences are partially biological, so our age group, gender, what we were exposed to in the womb, those types of things, but then it's also largely sociocultural, the culture that we set within our home. And so so my third thing, be cool. So be cool, be conversational, make sure that they're in on it. They have to be a part of it, because one thing that I learned previous career that really stands true for so many things in life is people will support what they help create. And so, and if you remember creating a with them, what's in it for me, and so not eat your vegetables because they're good for you, think about it through their eyes. What gets them jazzed? What do they like? What do they care about? And present it in a way that means something to them. And so that kind of takes me into like the different like age groups. And so with preschoolers and toddlers, we'll start with like toddlers. So they're kind of, just kind of learning things. And so just giving them that variety and just starting a conversation and beginning to give them the vocabulary as they're eating things. If you give them something new, because they're more likely to try new things at that age. And just telling them like, oh, is that really sweet? Oh, is that very tart? Giving them like the different language for those, because once they get into the preschool age, because this is where neophobia sometimes kicks in, and that's a phobia of trying new things. And so that's like a legit thing that happens during the preschool age, 3 to 5, where they are more inclined to be a little bit standoffish towards trying new foods. But then if we're able to just kind of have a conversation with those preschoolers, tell them about the superpowers that they get from the foods that they're eating. And so as they're eating the things, did you know those carrots are really good for your eyes? Did you know that oatmeal that you're eating is going to give you lots of energy so that you can run really fast like Catboy? Or, just making sure that you think about them and where they are in their life phase, what are the things that interest them, and kind of turn it to with them. What's in it for me? What are the things that are going to matter to them? And then with like the older children, yeah, and as they're getting a little bit older, some things that you can do with like the older children is let them be your sous chef. Let them help out, because then with them getting to be hands-on, if they're hands-on with a new ingredient, then they're gonna be a lot more likely to want to eat it because they made it. And so they're gonna be excited to see people trying it. And so there's just a lot of different things, and teaching them about gardening, because like where does food come from, and them getting to see like that whole process. And even if you don't have a lot of space, like you could do a little herb garden or a little tomato cage on your porch or something, and just having them just look at the bigger picture and having the conversation about our bodies and our health, and how it's impacting them and how our food is impacting them. So just education, story, making it personal for them are really the biggest things that we can do with starting out with healthy eating. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and a couple of things I wanted. No, you're good. I'm finding it so interesting, but I wanted to say a couple things, like going back to structure. Kids actually like structure. They feel comfortable with structure. When they don't have any structure, when they don't have a set bedtime or a set dinner time, or, they don't know, what kind of foods they can eat or can't eat, what is acceptable, they don't feel as secure. So these rules and these structures that we put in place actually make kids feel more secure and more safe in their environment, growing up and everything. So I just wanted to add that. I thought it was
it's so true. And it almost seems like counterintuitive, or that you wouldn't think that, but I mean, as long as you're not overdoing it, yeah, they thrive.
Right.
They need it. They're new people, they're new humans, they're wandering through this life, and that's what we're here for, is to help, keep them straight.
Guide them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then what you said about letting them help you, like that's something that I've always let my kids do. If they see me in the kitchen preparing dinner or something, like my son, he doesn't do it as much anymore because he's 11, but my daughter, she's 4, and she just helped me last night. She's like, Mom, can I help you? And I'm like, yes, you can, girl. And she, my husband got home and she was so proud to tell him that she made dinner. Mom, Daddy, I cooked that. I made that. And she was so proud, and she ate every bite.
Yes,
So
it works.
They get so proud when they feel like they've helped you, So, and then I don't know if anybody remembers that show, Yo Gabba Gabba, but my son used to watch it. And we still use one of those episodes on that show about the food on your plate wanting to go to the party in your tummy. And I use it on my daughter now. And the other day she asked me, Mom, what does that mean? What do you mean? And so I looked up the episode on YouTube and showed it to her. And she was like, oh, okay. So the carrots want to go to the party in my tummy. And,
I love that.
now
I haven't seen that one.
that's
I'll have to check it out now.
yeah, all the food on your plate wants to go to the party in your tummy, not just one thing or two things. Everything wants to go there. So
I
she
love
really
that.
liked that. And anyway, I just thought I would add that. I don't know if anybody remembers that show. Um, so the second question I have is like, what if you have picky eaters, like whatever age they are? A lot of people struggle with picky eaters, and they don't want to try anything. And so how do we get our kids to want to eat healthier or try new foods?
Yeah, when it comes to introducing new foods, number one, I would say is don't give up. There is hope. It can happen. And like I mentioned, repeated offerings of the food, eventually their innate preferences can change. And remembering too that during those preschool ages, like that's when neophobia is like in full effect, and so where they are going to just naturally have like an aversion to new things. But one of the things, or the big thing that I do whenever I'm introducing a new ingredient, is that I make sure that I'm only introducing one thing at a time, like one new thing at a time, and that everything else on the plate are things that are tried and true and that I know for sure are hits with my kids. And just introducing that one new item on the plate. And also when I am introducing something for the very first time, I make sure that I am selling it. And so, and like having them like kind of in on the conversation beforehand. And then when I cook it, there's one thing that I'm going to really nail on that plate. It's going to be that I'm going to prepare it in the best possible way. I'm not going to phone it in. Like I'm going to make it as best as possible, putting my best foot forward, because this is the first time that they're meeting this new food. And so I want to make sure that it has its best shot, because if I like end up giving them, some soggy broccoli, like for the first time with like no flavor added to it, it's probably not going to go off well. And then they're probably going to be even less inclined to try that thing. And so making sure it's one thing at a time, making sure I'm putting my best foot forward, and that I'm having it with other things. And I also will try to prepare it in a way I'll either prepare it in a way that they're familiar with, whether that's like the texture or the size, or in a flavor that they're used to and that they already know. And so for example, last night we did kale. And so my son has had it before, but my toddler, she hasn't had it before. And so I, sauteed it with garlic because I know that they like that, and just like where it was like for familiar flavors. And then the other ingredients that I had with it, my kids like mushrooms, and we did like red lentil pasta. So those were familiar things that they enjoy. And so, and they enjoyed it, they liked it, and they actually said that that was their favorite part of the meal. And so just making sure that it's surrounded by other things that they like, that it's prepared in a familiar way. And then also, I'm a big fan of, I think on social media, I've seen it referred to as like the polite bite. When my oldest was younger, I referred to it as try it before you deny it. And so it's okay if you don't like this thing and you don't want to continue eating it. But you're not allowed to tell me you don't like it if you haven't tried it. And so you need to at least taste it, try it. I need to witness it happening. And then I want you to tell me why you don't like it. What about it did you not like? Mm-hmm. So in the toddler years, that's where I'm teaching them the vocabulary about sweet, salty, crunchy, all of those different textures and flavors. I'm teaching them that vocabulary at that age. And then at this age, they should be able to start to, tell me like what it is they don't like about it. And then as a mom, as the home chef, I'm taking notes about what are the things that they don't like. Because here's the thing. I don't want to be forced to eat something that I've tried and I do not like the taste of it, but also keeping in mind that this is, a kid that is a new human that we're teaching and guiding. And so having them try it and then having them start to learn how to articulate what it is that they don't like, because I am going to have them try it again on a later date, but I want to take notes on what were the things that they didn't like about it. Was it the texture? Was it the mouthfeel? Was it the flavor? What would they have liked? And I'll introduce that food again later on down the road, taking into consideration the things that they let me know. And then because I put other things on the plate that I know that they like, then they're still going to get like their sustenance, and they went ahead and tried it. And so this is kind of a learning stage for me and them with this new food. And then it makes them feel heard. And then it's not this battle of you must eat this thing, it's a conversation, and then they're going to feel respected and heard, and they're going to be more likely to, try new things, because it's not this thing. Because when you push somebody into like a corner, they're naturally going to want to push back to be free. And so you just want to make sure that we're keeping it positive. And then again, the other things that I talked about with starting out on unhealthy eating, having them involved and keeping the WIFM in mind, and just make sure that you're keeping it positive and health promoting, as opposed to, bribery and threats and, and those types of things, and just making sure that it's just positive promoting, and just remembering that don't give up. And I don't know what it is, but I think they say like if you need to try something like 10 times before you don't like it. The number keeps changing every time I hear it, but X number of times before you truly don't like the thing. But yeah, so just keep trying, try it a different way, put your best foot forward, make sure there's other things that they like, keep it familiar. I think those are the best things that you can do with picky eaters, and just know that oftentimes it's a phase that they'll pass through.
Yeah, and I want to talk about just what you talked about with like trying, like see what they don't like about the food, because that happened with my daughter with a couple of different foods. Like I love seasoning and spices, garlic and onion and all that. And with like green beans and chicken in particular, she kept saying, well, I don't really like it, and she would just eat a few bites. And I was like, what, like you said, what do you not like about it? And come to find out, she didn't like all the seasoning on it. She just wanted plain, and ever since then I've been making, I won't put, I will make some, without seasoning for her, and she eats it. She eats it all her whole plate, because now, that's the way she prefers it. And a lot of kids are like that. They don't like a lot of seasoning and flavors and things, and that's fine. Like, so, we solved that issue. And it's as simple as, like you said, just asking them, what do you not like about it? What is turning you off of it, this food or whatever. And sometimes it is texture too, because I deal with that with my son too. A lot of times he just doesn't like the texture of things. And so we try to tweak it a little bit, and then he likes it. So I think those are great tips.
Having a conversation is powerful. Like, kids are so much smarter and, reflective than, we sometimes give them credit for. And, they're capable of telling us, these things. And, on the green beans, when I was growing up, I thought I hated green beans, but it was because the only green beans I ever ate growing up were in a can. And their canned green beans are insanely different than fresh steamed green beans. And so, they're mushy, and they kind of have this metallic-y like taste to them. And so like I didn't like that texture, but I love crisp steamed green beans, and I went through, all of my childhood thinking I didn't like green beans, until one day my mom just happened to steam some for Thanksgiving, and I was like, what is this? It was this new like revelation for me, and now I love them.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then my son, he also had braces last year, and that was a big deal, like with a lot of the foods, because he couldn't chew them, or, the texture wasn't right. And so that was something that we had to deal with and get used to. But, there's always workarounds. So,
Absolutely.
luckily he's old enough, he was able to tell me, and we figured out what the issue was, and got through it. But yeah, I love those tips. So the next question, how can we avoid making multiple meals for dinner? Because there's so many parents out there that we make one meal, and the kids are like, I'm not going to eat that, and so we end up making something else, and probably something not as healthy. And so how do we avoid that? Or should we give our kids that choice of, do you want this, or do you want me to make you something else? Or, and then another thing, like, what about, like, in my house, if they don't eat their dinner, that's fine if you don't want to finish your dinner, but don't ask me for a snack later if you're hungry, because, you should have ate your dinner if you were hungry. But anyway, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I am totally with you. Like if you're not hungry enough to eat your dinner, then that means that you're not hungry enough to get to have, something else like afterwards. I'm absolutely totally with you. And the thing is, nobody wants to be a short order cook. It's your house, it's your home. Like you don't want to sit there taking like, all right, what can I get you? Like that's just not a fun environment. That's not good for your mental health. That's just, too much. And I think that, and really, you have to gauge it for like what's right for your household, because sometimes, that easy button is very tempting, and there might be like certain situations where it's like, okay, you know what? Child hasn't eaten all day, and so like they need to eat something, so let me just do this, every once in a while. But hopefully that's the exception more so, and not the norm. But I think the biggest weapon to this is prevention. And so just kind of what we've been talking about, with having that conversation, that dialogue, being tuned in to like, what are like the textures and the flavors that they like, and having them in on the conversation. And then just making sure that like the food that we are preparing are things that are at least, and this is an arbitrary percentage, but like at least 75% of things that that they do indeed like. And so, because everybody isn't going to have like the same preferences. Like sometimes I will have meals where, if there's like 4 items on the meal, there's like one thing that my son, I know that he doesn't like, but my daughter likes it. And then there'll be another thing on that plate that I know my daughter doesn't like, but my son likes. And so just making sure that you plan your meals with the knowledge that you already have about what your family is going to eat. And I am totally a proponent for, if you're not hungry enough to eat the dinner after I made things that I know that you like, then, I guess you're not hungry. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what do you think about the, like, where you've heard like the Clean Plate Club or the Happy Plate? What do you think about that? Should we make them eat everything on their plate, or if they've eaten half of it and they say they're not hungry anymore? What do you think about that?
I'm not the biggest fan of the Clean Plate Club, but I do have a like personal understanding and experience with it. Both of my grandmothers on either side of my family, they're old school, and that's the way that I was raised. And it wasn't really. I mean, I didn't really get like a lot of like flack for like not finishing. Well, kind of I did, but if I wanted to stay in the good graces of my grandmothers on either side, then I would polish that that plate clean and ask for seconds. And so like that was the culture on both sides of my family, is that if you want to do good, and I am a recovering people pleaser, and so I was very big on like, look, grandma, eat all my food. I would like some more, because I knew that I would get praised for that. But then, the problem with that is that when we're using our plate as a gauge for how much we're eating, then we're kind of deactivating our natural body's cues, because our body is, like this really awesome automated system that sends us all kinds of great triggers and clues that tell us what to put in it, how much to put in it, and when we need to put something in it. There are all of these really awesome automated systems within us. The human body is amazing. But when we are feeding it information of like, well, I'm going to ignore that, notification, and I'm going to just eat until my plate is like sopped up and I've eaten every single morsel and grain on this plate, then eventually we become, we desensitize to that notification system, and and we end up overdoing it. And the thing that really, and so that's why I'm really not a big proponent of the whole clean plate club. I am a big fan of try it before you deny it, and making sure that you are not just distracted because there's other things that you want to do, or if there's like toys at the table or tablets at the table, and you're just kind of like antsy to like do other things, and so removing distractions and just making sure it's food that they like, and so as long as sometimes you're just not that hungry, and that's okay. And so just listening to your personal body cues so that you don't end up having problems later on in life. For me, when I was on my up and down journey, how that showed up for me was I would go and, I'd go out to eat for lunch at work, and I would like, oh, this is so good. And I would eat it all, and I wanted to eat all of the things that were on my plate. But then I'd go back to work and I just felt like, so I could not function. And it just was not something, I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like that overstuffed feeling. And I'm like, I've got a life to live. I've got stuff to do. I don't have time to sit here and be a part of the Clean Plate Club, because, I'm out of commission when I do that. And so I think it's important to teach kids to listen to their body cues. And so, let to each their own. But I personally believe that we should, just listen to what our body's telling us and stopping when we're full.
Yeah, intuitive eating. Like, I'm huge on that. Intuitive eating. And I think, those old ways of thinking, like clean your plate, that kind of gets us away from intuitive eating. That kind of, like it buries it. Like, you're not as in tune with it when that's how you grow up thinking, like, oh, I've got to clean my plate so my mom will be happy or my grandma will be happy. Like, that's just, I don't know. It's teaching kids. Yeah, it's teaching kids to not listen to their body and what it needs and what it doesn't need. So, yeah, I'm huge on intuitive eating, and I think a lot of us have lost that sense of, hunger. Am I hungry? Am I not? Emotional eating and all that. But anyway, that's like a whole
other
video. But yeah, I love that. So how do we approach like the importance of eating healthy and being healthy with our kids? Like, what tips would you give for other parents out there that are like struggling with that?
Yeah, I just, keep it light, keep it fun, keep it interesting, and just remembering and keeping it relevant to your child for their age group, where they are developmentally, and where they are just in their interests, and the things that are relevant to them and the things that they enjoy. And so remembering the WIFM, what's in it for me, what's in it for them, and I think just having it be something that is fun and not something that is, being rained down on them, and that it's, we're a team, and in this household, we care about our bodies, we care about our health, we want to be big and strong, like we want to run fast, like we want to have sharp minds, we want to have, all of these things, we want to take care of our bodies, and just having them, buy into having a vested interest in their bodies and how that affects them right now. And so, because they don't care about how it's going to impact them, that, 6 out of 10 adults have, some sort of chronic disease that could have been prevented, in early childhood, and now it's leading to the #1 killer in the US. They don't care about that stuff, and so they want to run fast, they want to grow tall, they want to, they care about, other things. We're just making it fun, just, looking at their age group and thinking about them as the individual, and just taking a holistic approach, how does this impact them as an individual, and how does it impact them as a whole person, and just making it relevant, I think, is the biggest thing, and not making it a super strict thing, and just making it fun.
Yeah, that's something I have to get better at, especially with my son, because I'm always, preaching to him well, I had prediabetes and gestational diabetes, and, I don't want you to have to deal with that. I don't want you to struggle with that. So, this is what we need. He doesn't care. Right now, he's 11. He doesn't care about all that, So that's a good
Because
reminder for me
that's what our motivator is, and that's the reason that we're, focused on this mission. And so it's hard not to share those things. And I think that it is important for them to know, on some level, what the big, underlying issues are and what those things lead to, but also making sure that we have the conversation about the things that they care about. And just, keeping it conversational, and just really making it this team thing, that oh, in our family, these are the things that we care about. And, because then it's more of this is how we do things, and not, I'm not allowed to, do this, because there is a big difference with the delivery, for sure.
Yeah, yes. That is a great reminder for me. So, yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have, but I do want you to tell the viewers a little bit about how if they're interested in your coaching, or how they can get in touch with you, what your website is, maybe. Tell them a little bit how they can get to know you better.
Sure. So my website is Basic on Purpose, and so all about just getting back to the basics and just the fundamentals of taking care of our bodies. And so you can schedule a one-on-one call with me, and where we can kind of talk about where you are on your health journey. And I also have a Facebook group called Moms Taking Control of Junk Food Cravings. And so those are, I'm on Instagram. I'm not really on, I have an Instagram page. I'm not really on it very much, but you can contact me there too, and on Facebook. So Basic on Purpose.
So we'll put all that down in the description also. We'll put your website and your group and all that, links to all that, so they can join if they want to.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, Tameeko. I'm so glad that we were able to get together and do this. And hopefully our viewers found it helpful. Yeah, me too. I hope everyone found it helpful. Is there any last words you want to say, or anything you want to say to the viewers before we wrap up?
I would say you've got this. It is tough, but just keep trucking along, and just remember that our taste preferences can be changed. So just keep trying, keep listening, make it fun.
Yes. All right, Tameeko. Well, you have a good weekend.
You too. It was great talking to you.
Bye, guys.